How old were you during that time?
September 11, 2001, I was 25 years old.
I was in middle school. Let's just go there.
When 9/11 occurred, I was in second grade. So however old you are in second grade, I think that's 6, 7.
23, I think. About 23. I was 35.
So during 9/11, what were you doing during that time?
Ironically, I was in a classroom and I was teaching. And I was teaching a U.S. history class. And on September 11, 2001, I was teaching a U.S. history class to 8th graders. We were discussing the fact that war has two main causes. In all wars in history, the main causes are either money or relationships with people. And so it was ironic that as we were having that conversation, that was when the first tower fell.
I was a clinic aide, and our nurse had it up on her screen. So then we started watching it there, and then I went to a history class, and our history teacher pulled it up on the TV.
During 9/11, I was at school, so I was in second grade, and I just remember that we were all sitting at our desk, and then all of a sudden, like, our teacher gathered us all, and they moved us to the auditorium.
I was a second grade teacher at an elementary here in Garland. I was walking down the hall. I don't remember if I had my kids then or not, or if I was on conference, but I was going down the main hallway, and somebody stopped me in the hall and said, "Have you heard that a plane flew into one of the Twin Towers in New York?" At the time, because I hadn't seen any of the news coverage, I thought it was a little Cessna plane, like not a big airliner. And so it's like, oh no, I hadn't heard that. And I went on to wherever I was going and came back. And then, I guess by then, the second plane had hit the tower, the other tower, and they were about ready. It wasn't long after that till they collapsed. And they, like Miss Latham talked about, they had a TV. It was one of those movable ones that was on a cart in our teacher's lounge, and people were going in on the conference to watch the coverage. So I went down to watch and saw what they were talking about. It was just an amazing, unbelievable sight to see.
How'd you receive the news initially?
What happened was we were in the middle of classroom discussions and we were talking with the kids. I was talking with them about a lesson we were doing on the Revolutionary War. And then we got a notification from one of the administrators, "Hey guys, come to the meeting space," which was a gym for us. And in the gym is when they told us about what had happened.
Because again, I was on conference, and so the kids were at, PE or specials or whatever. And I think we were having a planning meeting, and somebody was like, "Hey, did you guys hear what's going on?" And we're like, "No." And so we went to, back then they had a conference room with the TVs, and so we were all sitting in there just shocked and watching what was going on.
What were your initial thoughts and emotions?
Initially, there was just this feeling of it was unreal because we had never heard of such a thing happening. You have to understand, I was a senior in high school in '94 when there were bombings in Oklahoma City. And that just seemed so far away, but this seemed close even though it was still New York.
It was very scary. I thought they were coming for us, and we didn't have any clue what was going on. We just assumed that everybody was under attack.
I was too little to truly understand what was going on, but I got scared because I could tell, like, the adults around me were a little scared. And then they sent us home, and so initially I just thought, like, am I gonna be safe? When you're that little, you don't really understand how far away the danger is or how close it is. But when you sense an urgency, so because they sent us all home, I of course thought, is something bad gonna happen here to us?
The initial thought was like, well, we really didn't know what it was at first. You just saw the planes going into the towers, and there was speculations and people were saying it was terrorists and it could be that, but your initial thought was, oh, surely not. And so it was a surprise. Everybody was very surprised and shocked.
it was unbelievable. I know that the World Trade Center had been attacked in 1993, but most people, because nothing really, you know, I mean, they had people that were killed, but it was a bombing in the bottom of the Trade Center, and people didn't think that. I think the common belief was that you couldn't bring them down, and so for them to take the airliners and do it the way they did, and all the loss of life, it was just unbelievable that it could happen here, especially in America.
How has this affected your life?
Well, it's affected all of our lives, right? Because so many lives were lost, whether you knew someone or not. It also affects our safety and the security that we go through now when we fly. But I think just more people are more cautious now, or maybe we're more that sense that we had of like, oh, that'll never happen to us. Like we're safe, kind of got taken away from us. And so there's always this like, what if now?
I think as a whole, it's affected our country's life. At that moment, everybody was very unified in the country. I'm not sure ever if fear is a good unifier, but everybody was suddenly patriotic.
It's made a lot of changes that were different. You could, prior to that, you could go to the airport with your family. You could walk into the terminal and walk them to the gate or go pick them up. You could park along the side of in the parking lot and wait for people, and you no longer can do that. Now, the security is much tighter. So it kind of took away a sense of security that you were safe and that happens in other countries, not here. And it just changed the way you look at things. It was scary to have a room full of little kids, and they all came back the next day talking about what had happened, and parents were coming to take them home, and it was just a scary, uncertain time. And I think that it changed the way you look at things. I went home, and it was just you wanted to make sure that you told your family members you loved them, and you just never know. Those folks went to work that day, and then they never came home. So it just shows you that life can be uncertain, and you need to appreciate it. So it was a sad day in our history.
Would you like to add anything else you would like to share?
Just that I think the biggest challenge for us once that took place was that a lot of people had put up some resistance to getting to know other people, especially if they look differently. I felt like that was the time where we should have been reaching out to people more, connecting with people more. But you saw a lot of xenophobia. You saw a lot of people that stopped talking to folks because they felt like this friend or that friend, even though they had known him for years, they didn't trust him and didn't know him anymore. And you have to understand too that for me, my father identifies as African American, but his look is one that he can look like various different ethnicities. His background is Hispanic, African American, and he has some Asian influence as well. So when you look at him, he was whatever the group was that you thought you were concerned about. So it particularly hit me as a person, because then my dad was somebody that they were watching too.
No, it was just a very real moment. Watching the planes hit the World Trade Center was incredibly scary, and we really thought that everybody was being attacked. We thought Dallas was the next place.
I guess that, I know the new generation wasn't alive when it happened, and then us, I'm a millennial. I think, we're kind of little, so as more time goes by, I guess, keep doing what you guys are doing, which is asking questions and talking about it so that, those people who tragically lost their lives, that their memory can keep going on,
I do think it was a very sad day in our country, a very sad day in our history. At the same time, it's a day that should be remembered and celebrated because there were a lot of heroes that came.
I think this is the 22nd or 23rd anniversary, and people just don't need to they always need to remember that day and honor those victims and just don't forget what happened, just like any other tragic event in America's history.